what we're going to do now is we're going to start with what we know, the one that I've actually named called a CFF. Now, it, like the other flies that I play with, it has a story. For those that have never had the opportunity, down in the river valley on the Crow's Nest, there's a big white house down there. People might have seen it off Highway 3. And it was owned by Bill and Shirley Sarah. And they had two kids. The younger one, Dexine, was as crazy fish crazy as the boy. So Barry and I were down there, and we'd stopped into the house and said, "Can we get permission to go south of the house and down to?" There was a big bend down there, and so yeah. But of course, here come Dexine. She was about maybe 10 at that time, and here she comes stomping in her cowboy boots. Were about 4 sizes too big. "Can I come?" Sure. So away she comes. She got her one fishing rod, and she come along. Well, she would go with Barry on her side until it got tough to go, and then I'd go and get her, and she'd piggyback across the river with me, and so on. And so I tied a fly on that we used a lot in the days down there for dry fly fishing, called a Western Coachman. Now, the Western Coachman was a particular favorite of Iona Bengry, which was she was a wonderful, wonderful lady and an excellent fisherman. Now, what I've done, guys, I'm going to change back to flies for a minute with the story. What I've done is I've tied in 3 pieces of hurl. I tied them in by the tips. I nipped off about, probably a half to 3/4 inch of the tips on the hurl. Just nipped it off when I tied them in. Then what I did is I set up a dubbing loop. You see it right here? A thread. And in this case, I'm using black. And now what I'm going to do on that, I'm just going to pull a little tension on it. And I'm going to hook on my twister. Now I'm going to show you the twister after I'm done. And what I do is I twist it. I don't know whether you can see that. I twist it about 4 or 5 turns until the base down here at the fly starts to get pretty tight. Right. Then what I'll do is I'll put a no, I bet that don't happen to anybody but me, does it?
Oh yeah, for sure.
I nicked that on the hook. All right, so what I'm going to do is, like I said, I don't know where you see that. I'm just going to cut off the 3. Oh, by the way, the reason I like that bobbin holder like that, I set it just usually in light enough I can move it around. There we go. I'll do that again. And what I'm using is a 6/0 Dandles. Now, we're going to start out here and get everything nice and snug. Now, I want to make sure you get all the threads in there. Now, okay. Do a couple, 3 turns like that, and then make the first turn. Avoid the hook point this time. Second turn, third turn. Okay. Now the turns start to loosen up. So then I give it another couple of 3 twists, and I go back at it again. Now the reason I do that is because this then turns that hurl body bomb-proof. And the plan of this whole fly was to make something that lasted, because a lot of flies, they don't last very long. And the name on this came about. Where did it go, Sandy? I had it here. Anyway, we have more here, so it's okay. It came about 2 or 3 years later when Mike and I were out on one of the little tours we were out, and we were camping, and I was using this fly, and the fish on the North Ram finally captured it and tore it off. But it had caught 115 cutthroat that day, or over that trip. Now, I don't know about you guys, but any fly that can catch 115 and still alive is one tough fly. Not only that, one advantage to this critter, as compared to virtually every dry fly, other than the ball movement I'll show you later, is you pull it under the water and it pops back to the top again, which is not a bad thing, frankly. So you can fish some pretty rough water, and this thing floats like a top. All right, now, what I'm going to do is, you can see here, I cut a piece about the diameter of maybe about 3/4 the diameter of a kitchen like a wooden kitchen mat. Now it looks like it's too big, and we'll get to that in a minute. Now what I'm going to do is 2 soft loops over the top, and I'm going to give them a 3 or 4, so I got about 4 loops over. I'm going to go in and cut that out. All right, like so. I'm going to save that for later. All right, and I'm just going to bind that down. Now, what I'm looking for, guys, and you'll never find hackle like this again in your life. This is how I used to buy hackle, and for herders, the company of the States. And being as about a business from 1975, but don't you'll ever find any. Anyway, what there was, so they used to sell by the ounce. So I would buy an ounce of feathers, of brown ones like that at that time. And I bear in mind, this is in the 70s. It used to cost me under $2. But if you would hand pick out what was good out of it, and there would be maybe, well, 10% of it was worth a damn, but it wasn't cost very much either. So I used to haul this stuff when I worked shift and haul it out to work. And I would spend hours culling hackle. You know, what I was doing was just tying flies commercially then. And what I would do is the hackle, I'm going to show you what I do. The hackle was actually placed in envelopes. And it was marked on it, the size and what it was, badger hackle, ginger size 14 for that case. Put it in envelopes, and when I was tying, I would grab a handful of already pre-prepared, trimmed, and sized hackle so I could keep going like the milltails of hell. Now, one of the things that most of us don't realize in today's world, I was averaging at that time in 1970, probably 74, 55 cents a fly. And I was making more money off my fly waste than I was with my job. But you got faster, you went crazy. Right, there we go. Anyway, so now one of the things you'll find about this hackle is that don't matter. You don't want to use that really fancy stuff that you spent, you know, $9,000 getting a hackle that's about as long as your leg. You know, the crappier it is, the better. Because the hackle, and lots of places, when I start to get down to size 18s, and I use these in 18s, I don't put a hackle on at all. Now, this is where it gets kind of critical. I'm going to take this a feather problem there. All right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in the tail end, and I'm going to cut the tail, and I'm going to come in this way and do it. I'm going to cut towards the eye of the hook from the tail, so you end up tapered. That makes sense? And I'm going to thin it out as I go in, right, until I got a nice tapered tail. Right. The same thing now when I come to the wing. I'm going to go in the wing, and the first cut I'm going to make is I'm going to go, I'm trying to get the picture of my hand on the way. I'm going to make the first cut, this is what I'm going to do. The first cut I'm going to make like this, right here. Oh, yeah, through there. All right, so I got a feather like that, right? Then I'm going to fluff it out, nice and easy. Fluff. I'm going to take a look at it. And these strays on there, and I'm just going to take them and point a little bit, like so. All right. Now the next step, you guys have probably never done this, but this material here is what that is. You remember the shoe glue that you guys used to buy by the tube? It was about a 4-ounce tube, and that's mixed with lacquer thinner now because I can't get access to toluene anymore because I don't have a job. But now what I'm using is lacquer thinner, and from the co-op store, which has mostly toluene in it. And what I do is mix it. And what is critical now is that to take this stuff, and it has to be just about like, you see there, I've got 1 drop hanging on that needle. That's how thin you want it. You want it so it slides on right to the base. And you want 1 drop. And you slide it right down to the base. And as it does that 2 or 3 times, what happens is that you end up with binds the wing and binds the hackle, and that thing will last forever. Simple enough. Shoe glue and Well, that's right. By the way, for those that have never done this, these pool noodles work really well to keep that fly cement on the right side up on your fly tying table.